Mm-hmm.
Okay, 1, 2. What's up, guys, and welcome to Straight from the Chest podcast. My name is Justin Groff, and I'm your host on this personal development and growth podcast. Listen, if you're new to the show, I just want to take this time. I want to welcome you. Thank you for being here. And if this is your second, third, or 150th time tuning back in, thank you for your continued listenership and support of the podcast. It means a lot to me. And if you haven't yet already, please subscribe to the channel. We're on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, anywhere. If there are podcasts, we're likely there, all major platforms. And we just started our YouTube, so please do me a favor and subscribe to that channel as well, Straight from the Chest. And as always, please do link the podcast to any of your social media platforms. If it's Instagram, at me at Justin Craig Roth, and I'll be sure to re-mention you in the stories. And just please help to generate more awareness of the podcast, what we're doing here, the guests we have on, etc. It would mean a lot to me. So again, I appreciate your listenership and your support and your time. Thank you. But without further ado, I want to welcome back one of my friends, Vanessa Navarrette. Thanks for coming back, baby. How are you?
It's such a pleasure to be back, as always. You know that.
So, I mean, it's been, 7 months since we last did the first podcast?
Sounds about right.
So what's changed? Because I know we spoke briefly. I say briefly, but it was like a good 10 minutes, and I kind of hated it because I wish that we had saved that authentic convo for the podcast. I try to not talk a lot when the guest gets here, but just for listeners so they understand, because I want to save all the good stuff. I want to save everything in its authenticity for the listener. But let's start where we can, and we'll pick up kind of where we left off. But we'll also kind of review some things, I'm sure, from what we just talked about. But without anything else going into, without saying anything else, I want you to first tell me kind of what's different this time around.
Why don't we start off with what kind of we jumped into?
The elephant in the room.
The elephant in the room is I am pregnant, for all of my viewers on my business page, Wholeness Health. And most of our family knows already. It's kind of been, the elephant in the room. I haven't brought it up unless, it comes up. And it's been really nice because we've had some privacy. We've been able to really soak it in. And then when I see people, I get to tell them, and it's really personal. So I really enjoyed that aspect of not fully announcing it to the social media world.
Do you know if it's a girl or boy yet?
It's a girl, and we're halfway there. So
oh, sweet.
We're excited.
What's the workout? How have the workouts been since being pregnant?
I've lightened the load a little, but with the kind of husband I have, he'll push me if he knows it's in me. We're safe, obviously. I am getting more sleep, so I'm lifting like 3 to 4 days a week. Still 5 if I'm lucky, and still hiking. Running has been cut down to like 1 to 2.5, 3 miles, but it's just all listening to my body right now.
What's your program like for your weight training?
Typically it's like a lower body day, so usually 2 leg glute days, and then upper body will be like, shoulders and biceps or triceps, and then back, and we kind of just break it up. I kind of been following a few different leads. I've worked with different coaches, and then my husband, sometimes I just jump on his wagon and do whatever he's doing. So
sure. And he's following some type of a split as well?
Yeah. He goes much heavier, but
of course, yeah. Us men gotta live heavy ass shit. That's awesome, man. And I obviously see all your stories, or at least most of them. You had mentioned in a couple of your stories, right, that you had kind of let the cat out of the bag, and I obviously did not see those, because when you told me, I was in shock. Like right when you told me, because for people that are listening and they're not viewing, you would never tell. Like, you don't hold weight. At least you're not holding much weight, since I didn't notice anything. And my whole fucking job is based on the body. So, and I didn't notice anything. And maybe you hide it well. Maybe you just don't put on a lot of weight, when you are pregnant. I don't know. But you didn't show any signs of that. So when you told me, I was like, what?
Well, it was your stares. Your stares got me. So I was like, I'm out of breath. But a lot of people have said that. And it's quite interesting, because we view our bodies so differently, Like, I'm my worst critic. And I've actually been working on, my business is Wholeness Health, and it's all aspects of health. And so I've really been working on body image and how I view my body in this season that I'm in. Because I feel like I've worked really hard to not necessarily change my body, but to become healthier and to feel good and to be confident in my walk. And so this time around, it's been very, I wouldn't say challenging, but I do catch myself like, what am I saying to myself? How do I feel? And my husband's been so supportive, and he's just the sweetest to me. And he'll be like, okay, time to get you some clothes so you're comfortable. Because I'll be like, what the heck? These don't fit me anymore. It can be really frustrating. But I mean, when it comes down to it and you see those ultrasound pictures and you feel the baby, it's like none of that even really matters. I'm taking care of myself the best I can. Luckily, this time around, I'm craving a lot of raw foods. And so that's been really awesome, because I feel like a lot of what I learned in holistic nutrition, I've been able to see the change in myself and how I feel and how I view food. And then I feel like, my experience will help other women, whether it's being in the gym and knowing that we are not always follow what your doctor says, and everybody has their own, we're all different, to say the least, but we're not weak, we aren't fragile.
Amen to that.
We really are capable of a lot. I mean, we got to push this baby out, if you're having a natural birth, we can go down that whole road, but my hope is that it inspires other women. And so I will be, the cat's out the bag now, but I do hope that other women feel inspired and encouraged and, have a sense of hope of who they are and what we were created to do. And that's birth babies. And,
Yes. And that's a, I can't even begin to tell you how much I'm so grateful I'm exonerated from that role as a man, because I don't know how that would go. That's ridiculous. So praise you guys for that. Now, for people that are meeting for the first time, what is Wholeness Health?
Wholeness Health is a juice business. So it started off about 2 years ago now, maybe a little over 2. During the pandemic, when we had the shutdown, I started making juices and delivered them, with my kids in the car. We just were delivering all around 5 cities, Santa Maria, Napomo, a little bit in San Luis. And I took a holistic nutrition course, got that certification through the pandemic as well. And it's really, nutrition. I really just focus on nutrition, movement, spiritual health, emotional, mental, all of it. But I don't I just dive as far as I can with myself in it. And then I just want to help other women and giving them a sense of hope and connecting with them. Really. That's my major thing, is always connection.
Well, I think you're doing a really good job at it. And the thing is that by you leading by example, it's going to actively collect women in kind of a concerted effort towards you. They're going to gravitate towards you, because there are not a lot of women that promote this specific, like the pregnancy walk, you know, and the whole journey and everything that's encompassed around being pregnant and still being active, still living a healthy life, and not just going to McDonald's drive-thru every day. You know, there's a lot of things that by you actively displaying them on Instagram and living by example and leading, that is going to be of massive utility to a lot of women that are going through the same things. I have a friend that she's a local of Santa Maria and has a fairly big following on Instagram, and she went down that path with her last pregnancy a few years back. And I mean, the amount of people that she's been able to impact in that local area, and even probably extending out the area, has been massive for her. And it's been so gratifying for her that, and it only just builds herself. You know, it's one of the most selfish things we can do by giving back to others, you know, and there's a direct reciprocity factor that's involved with that. And you're doing that. What you're doing is aiding in helping multiple women around the world. Well, whoever is on your Instagram and whoever has access to your Instagram, I mean, you're the efforts that you're putting into this are definitely helping people. And that is, you don't have to do that, you know? So by you extending that element of you're helping others, but it's also helping you in return, because you're able to hear what it's doing to people through DMs or through comments, etc. And that's so uplifting for not only them, but for you too. I mean, I think it's the reason why people get involved with personal or service businesses, you know, because, and that's kind of what you do as well with juicing. I mean, a lot of the impetus behind juicing was to be able to communicate and conversate with people and bring more awareness of health to their lives and showcase what this concoction of different fruits and vegetables can do for them on a chemical and cellular level. And that, and by that extension, you feel better because what you're giving this person is something of life, you know, and more people should engage in stuff like that, but they don't, because, well, it's not as palatable as, let's say, ice cream or pizza or something like that. So they will often take that route instead. But on the base level, you're doing so much, you know, and it just started from the business of juicing, right? Mm-hmm. But now you becoming pregnant and you doing, look, many women become pregnant, but many women don't live active lifestyles with their pregnancy, and many women do not talk about it. Mm-hmm. And there are going to be, I'm sure, times down the road here when you get further in your pregnancy where there are going to be shit days, if there already haven't been shit days. And you're going to not probably want to talk about those, but you're going to talk about them anyways, because if I know Vanessa, that's a transparent person that she is. And she's going to talk about that. And those are going to be the really dynamite pieces of content that are going to help the people that are actually viewing you for the long haul in this pregnancy, in this term that you're, you know, that you're immersed in right now. That's going to be really, really beneficial to them.
And as you're saying that, I can't help but think about like my kids. Like, I want to make sure I'm impacting them first and foremost, more now than ever. And so that's my hope too, you know, I do believe it. I do believe me and my husband are doing a better job now than ever in how we are walking out our life. My daughter, I try not to do too much of them on my social media, just out of like respect for them. They're little people, you know, and it's awkward when people know them, but they don't know them. So we could go down that rabbit hole.
Oh,
and my daughter,
I agree with that 100%.
She's a teenager and she doesn't really want to be like shared on there. And I totally like have learned keyword to respect that. But like for her, like seeing her join cross country and like, she's very athletic already. And sometimes it's hard, and she keeps her commitments and follows through. And I can't help but feel a sense of like gratitude that she's very active at a young age, because I know when I was her age, I was not doing the things she was doing. You know, I may have wished I could have, you know, I didn't have the upbringing to provide that. But just watching her, you know, I did have a shit day. we went for a family run and everyone outran me, and I was kind of bummed but also, on the brighter side, I was like so proud of my daughter. And then seeing her run with dad, I was like, that's just so cool. Like, look at them, as I'm struggling getting up that hill.
Yeah.
But at the end,
as you should be struggling.
We all made it, so it was good. But yeah, my hope is to definitely impact. If our home isn't benefiting and like gaining, then we're missing something there. If everyone else on the outside is getting something from me or from me and my husband, and we're helping others or being an example, it's one thing, but it needs to happen. I've learned it needs to happen in our home first. And so that's been like very important. And I have kind of not fell off the grid, but things have been a little slower in business. I'm not as active on there as I was at one point. And I think that's because I'm really honing in on a lot of healing and then just being available to my family. It's almost 6-year-old and a teenager, starting high school, and being pregnant, and my husband. So I feel like I'm learning how to prioritize my time and what's really important. And that's like usually what's right in front of me,
Yeah. You mentioned having the most impact on your kids. Like that was really important to you. And I mean, so that takes me to a question I have for you. When you were young, what was the most impactful for you with adults? Something that you heard or something that you were shown? Meaning how they acted, how they moved in life, or what they said to you?
So we'll go impacted in a positive way first.
That's what I mean by that. Yes, because that's that's what you want for your children.
There have been many women. Like there's a group of women, like I could list them off, that could make me cry, that have been there, that have showed up when I didn't have anything or anyone, when I thought I was alone, when you could call them mamas, you could call them mentors, you could call them coaches, but I wouldn't say it's been one thing. It's been the act of showing up. Again, that connection has been like so important with other women. Like that's the simplest way I could do it. There hasn't been like one instance or one person.
Right. But the action from them has been the thing that's caused you to be a better person and navigate your life better, right? It wasn't from what they said. It was first how they deployed their actions. So as youth or adolescents or mature beings, we operate, generally speaking, best when we see it performed in front of us, not from what the person says. That whole notion of, or that saying, actions speak louder than words. You can say you're everything, but the way you move tells me something completely different. And that is almost imperative in your own walk, your own navigation in life. If you are not led by example, you're likely not going to follow suit. But the thing that's going to be most impactful is leading by example. So that takes me to your children. As a child, I only saw what my dad did. I only saw how my mom moved and how my dad moved in life. Yes, I heard them, but what made much more of an impact and kind of cemented itself in my neural pathways in terms of how I interface with the world was how they moved and what they did action-wise. They didn't need to tell me, don't do drugs. They did. Obviously, the DARE program was big back when we were in fucking school. But they didn't need to shove it down my throat. They were normal about it. But I never saw any of that in my household. And I wanted to emulate the only people I look up to at that point in my life, which it still stands, is the only people I look up to.
Wow.
But It wasn't because they just said something and did something else. It was because of the way that they acted and the way that they moved in life and how they oriented themselves in their own household that led me to follow suit. So that's a long-winded way of saying you're impacting your children in the positive sense because you're leading by example. It's more important that you act accordingly and that you showcase what it is in your actions to your kin so that they follow suit apart from you just saying things. Because that's only going to go so far, right?
Yeah.
Words only impact you so much. Unless they're negative words, then that's, if the tongue dispenses with something that's very sharp, well, then that will likely bruise the person internally for quite a while. But I'm assuming you're not doing any of that shit. So it's like, it's only the positive end that we're speaking of here.
Yeah.
But you're doing that. You're going to impact them. So don't question if you're impacting them. Because if you're following suit with your own, and leading by example, you absolutely unequivocally are.
I guess it feels a little maybe new just because, and again, I've listened to all your stuff. And so I've heard the way you talk about your family and your dad, and that's amazing. That's amazing. Like I admire that. I've heard that and I've been like, dang, like kind of wish I had that. But I didn't, and that's okay now because I've learned to accept where I come from and what my experience was, which I'm sure there are people, again, when I talk about this stuff, it's not for myself necessarily. It's for the one person that I hope hears it. The one person that I hope it resonates with them, or they don't feel so alone, or they don't feel so different, or they think like they have some sort of hope, but growing up, it looked very different for me. Like everything you're saying, probably the opposite. And so, including the drug thing, it's like, I heard that at Dare, but I didn't know what that really meant. It's like, you don't know until you know. And again, not to like throw my parents under the bus. They just did the best that they could with what they had, and today I can have some compassion and some understanding, and I can probably love them a lot deeper now than I did before because of my own healing. And I don't say that lightly because it's been a very long road. It's been a very long road and a lot of healing of like stuff that I've seen growing up. I didn't see the right things, or the healthy things or the proper things, whatever word you want to put there. But I do know that I was still very loved and protected, and that's why I'm here today, and I that's why I do credit a lot of those women that have been in my life that have shown up and have connected with me and loved on me, because I could barely love myself at one point, and this is talking about a very young age, like at a very young age, a little girl, and like the healing that I've been walking through. Sometimes I like have sat back in the process of things and been like, that little girl just wants to be loved, and that's like okay, and again, I don't say any of that lightly because it's a lot of personal stuff, obviously, to share, but I do know that there is like the other side, and like we're talking about like my children, like I am having an impact on them, a positive impact, and so like there is the other side to that, like it is possible. And I do hope that like other people know it is possible. We don't have to live in our brokenness forever. It's a choice. And I'm just very grateful that I've been able to make that choice to live differently and walk differently and create a life that I know I deserve, so.
What was the impetus behind wanting to change?
I've messed up a lot, in my marriage and my family with my kids. I've been far from perfect. And it came to a place of surrendering myself, you know. I'll humbly and honestly say I've been a very selfish person, you know, and coming to realize that's not who I am and who I want to be came to like coming to an end of myself. Like literally driving on the road on the freeway. I remember the feeling of just like, I just was like bawling, and I was being resistant of, you know, I listen to worship music. That's like one of my main things. I used to love country. I loved that before with living on the freeway and just coming to the end of myself, and just the way I was, you know, the way I was walking out my life, just, I didn't want to do it anymore. You know, I got on the phone with someone to ask for help and guidance, and it was hard because it was like, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what was going to happen in my marriage and my family and my life, you know, without going into details. But I do know, and I know a lot of this by my husband's own walk, of when you reach out to people who you know are there for you, they're going to help you. When you reach out and just ask for that help, they're going to help you, you know. And that has been such an important thing for me too in my life, of asking for help. I can be very prideful and like stubborn because I'm like, I was born like I got it, you know, because nobody else did. My parents didn't, you know. I didn't feel protected. I didn't feel safe growing up, you know, very much abandoned. And so I had to grow up and be like, I got it. I got it. I got me and my sisters. I got it. That was my motto my whole youth, like growing up, you know, my 20s. I got it. I got it. The groceries, you want to help me bring them in? No, thank you. I got it. Like, you know, I can do it all. And it never did me any good.
So why did you adopt that specific motto though?
Why?
Yeah.
The I got it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things, you know, growing up and seeing a lot of damage in my own home, like my parents, the way they were living. They just weren't living a very healthy way.
So was it a survival tactic?
Yeah, survival, you know.
Was there an element? I was
afraid of like my dad, who I love dearly, you know, now. I always have, but more now than ever. So a lot of fear, you know. We were evicted many times, you know. We never really had stability. Both my parents have struggled with addiction, you know, and I don't talk about that lightly either, because my husband, you know, he's a recovering alcoholic, you know. So addiction is like major around me, and came with a lot, you know, a lot of bad experiences. But like now to sit here and to see the other side, it's just like, I don't know. I don't think I would change it. I really don't. I don't think I would be the person that I am today and who I like want to be. I think it would look a lot different. You know, I know what hard work is. I know a lot of things because of what I didn't receive when I was younger. And I'm okay with that. And again, like, I love my parents dearly. Even I just have an understanding and the compassion part, you know. Sorry. But yeah. Sorry, I haven't stopped to breathe.
No, I love it. And I'm sure the listeners love it. You mentioned surrendering everything. So what does that look like? How does somebody just surrender everything?
Well, for me, it looked like basically crying out to God. You know, I can't do this alone anymore. I don't want to do this. I need help. Like, barely remembering the drive home because I just was like so, like, at that end. It's hard to explain because everything inside of me, it's like I I have been pouring into other people and pouring into things while the bottom of myself is just leaking, just broken, just leaving a trail of mud in like the most important places, in my home, in my relationships, just leaving mud for them to follow and walk through with me. That's so unfair, you know? So just being so sick and tired of not being able to be who I was created to be. And I still don't fully know who that is, you know?
Yeah, welcome to the club.
But I do know that I am worth it. You know, I do know that I'm loved. I do know that I'm secure. I do know that I'm safe. I do know that I'm protected. Like, I know all these things now. And although I practice saying them daily, before I was like, I don't want to live. I'm not worth it. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. You know, yeah, I was going to the gym. I was eating healthy. I was learning, started a business. But like deep inside, there's just so much that was just hurting and broken, and nothing could fix, no money could fix that. The way the business started off booming, great, it didn't fix it. You know, there's just nothing that could fix that. I think for me, it had to come in a spiritual way. It had to come from something that I couldn't see. And that's hard to explain, but for me, I know it when I feel it. And like I said, I've felt it in worship. I've felt it with people in ministry. I felt it in connection, even when I've connected with other entrepreneur women. And some of those women have turned out to be some of the closest to me. And we haven't known each other very long, but we can connect on a level where we openly will say, hey, can you pray for me? Like, hey, we'll voice text, I love you, all the time. There's no room for gossip. There's no room for any of that like garbage anymore. It's just so far gone. And I want to continue to practice this life where it doesn't come, where I don't have those doors open.
Well, that's the gold statement right there. What you just said, you have to practice having these doors being shut, because you're not, I'm not, no one is above temptation. No one is above delving into their cardinal desires. No one is above that. Even if you think that you've got a cinch on it for a year and a half, 2 years, it'll still find its way to creep in some way or another. So the fact that you're continuously practicing keeping the lock on those doors, that's major. And that's going to lend itself to help you in the future, because I can assure you that these voices, or these temptations rather, whatever you want, whatever frame you want to put them in, they will reemerge for sure. And they will try to kick you off track for sure. So by you practicing keeping that lock on the door and essentially becoming more and more resilient to those temptations, that's going to bode in your favor exponentially.
Yeah, I believe it.
So that's a great thing that you're doing.
Thank you. I believe it. And I believe there's also the accountability factor, you know, of like my husband, we check in with each other. How are you doing? Not like, how are you doing? Like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Like, we can read each other, and we've given each other permission to be like, do we need to talk? Like what's going on here? And we've vowed, like, we don't do a certain dance anymore, you know, and it's a dance. You can say it's in a friendship, in a relationship, at work, whatever. It's a dance that doesn't serve anyone, you know, whether it's a fight, whatever. It can look however you want to put it. It's just, it's insanity. It doesn't serve anyone. But accountability, you know, we have very, very dear spiritual parents now who we like lean into. Like, who we're around is just very, very important, especially right now. Like, the last year has been, you know, it's been healing. It's been like trying to find a new way, a new marriage culture, a new home, like how do we want our home? What do we want that to look like? Because all we really ever knew is what we don't want. But we were still creating what we didn't want. It just looked different because we didn't know any different. And so now it's definitely, we look at like what we're around, who we're around, what we're doing, what we listen to, what we watch. And it's crazy because once you're aware of it, it's really hard. You know, even to be honest, certain things we've watched, we're like, we've tried watching it again now, like it could be a movie or something, you know, and it's like, oh, we probably shouldn't really watch that. Like it's not going to serve us, you know? So it's a lot of different things. And I know we're not going to have it all right off the bat because nobody does. I do believe it's going to be a continuous process, a continuous way we're walking out our life, a way that I want to walk out my life. And certain things may, you know, go wayside for a little bit. Like I said, my business has, you know, slowed down for me. But that's also been, you know, being halfway through my pregnancy, I've entrusted my husband a lot in like our finances and the direction of our family, which I didn't before. You know, I'm now like really honestly encouraging him, and I want him to go after his dreams and what he wants to do and how he provides to our family. And like before, I couldn't let go of that control. There was too much fear, financial insecurity. Like I got to make sure I do it for me. And so that has been like a major big thing for me in walking in faith, because I can't see that. I can't see it happen like instantly. It's going to take time, but I do, you know, feel a sense of like gratitude, and I'm happy that I've been able to like work through that. And like that's his role as a husband, as a father, to provide and protect and all of these things. Yeah, I didn't see it growing up. So I didn't know what that meant for him to like walk that out. And so now I can really encourage him and like speak that over him.
Danny's going to love this, what I'm going to say right now. The biggest and best thing you can do for a man is to pedestalize his masculinity. Let me say that again. Pedestalize masculinity, because masculinity is the thing that's going to protect you. Masculinity is going to be the thing that's going to continuously provide, even when times are arduous, when he has to, and it's just everything is against him. You pedestalizing his masculinity is going to cause him to want to fight dragons that he likely on his own wouldn't want to fight. But women don't understand this. Now, I'm not saying all women. With the whole toxic masculinity thing, they're conflating toxic masculinity and regular provisional protective masculinity as the same. Not the case. Masculinity in and of itself is a great thing. It's the reason why we have plumbing, houses, cars, streets, buildings, etc. And go on. Why wouldn't you want that? You do. Mm-hmm. So, I know from experience that when a woman pedestalizes my masculinity, it makes me innately want to level up. It's the most loudest form of encouragement you could give a man, is by pedestalizing his masculinity. And I'm not saying like, oh, good job on mowing the lawn, babe. No, that's not what I'm saying. Okay. When you support his dreams, when you support the things that embody him as a man, it makes him automatically want to meet those expectations that you're putting on him. So if you want the best man, pedestalize his masculinity. What you would argue that what you were doing prior was emasculating him.
Probably.
Not
Yeah,
probably. Not probably.
Yeah.
I mean, unless Danny's here to defend, I mean, I'm going to answer for him. Maybe I shouldn't do that. That's kind of arrogant. But I would go on a limb and I would say that by extension, you not allowing him to take the burden financially, to assume the burden in other regards possibly as well, it was placing him in a position that he's not biologically and chemically set up to adopt, and that is only going to further ground him in a position that he's again not wired to assume the role of. Like, he's wired to assume the protector provisionary role. Mm-hmm. Whether or not a man does it, that's how that motherfucker's wired. I'll give you an example. When you guys are in the bed late at night, sleeping sound, 3 a.m, there's a ruckus down below. Somebody's trying to break in your fucking house. The man naturally has the proclivity to get the fuck out of bed, grab whatever weapon he needs, and go confront the threat. Whether or not he's shaking, whether or not he has any apprehension, he feels that's his duty. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you as the woman also feel that's his duty.
I agree.
So would you omit him from that specific role? So that carries on in multiple avenues of the masculine feminine play here, for lack of a better word.
Totally agree.
So you're doing an awesome, I mean, I'm not grading you or anything like that. It's not, maybe it comes across like that. Forgive me if that's how it comes across. But I just see from the way you're illustrating things, the way it probably was seen on his end of the spectrum. And again, he's not here to defend, so I could be absolutely wrong on this, and he could correct me later if I'm not. I'm open to that. But just as knowing man, being a man, that specific element of pedestalizing the man, not in a sense like you're better than me, but I love the role that you have in my life, in our family's life. And I pedestalize it because it's such a tumultuous role. I mean, both of our roles are tumultuous. And when we come and merge together, we create a beautiful thing called marriage. However, I know your burden as a man to become something that otherwise is the underpinning to your identity is massively important to you. So I'm going to pedestalize that and support it, quote unquote, because I know that's going to be the thing that's going to cause you to level up on your own. And he will. And I will. Like, when I have a woman in my life that does that for me, it is insane. The level of, like, the chemical shift my brain takes. And it's also insane the chemical shift my brain takes when she's not that way. I want to run from that woman when she's not that way. I want to run, and I don't want to have anything really to do with her. But obviously, this is not about me. This is about you and your situation. And I think it's a long-winded way of saying it's an awesome thing that you're doing with him and for you and your relationship, etc. Everything. It all pairs very, very handsomely together.
We're working at it, you know.
So you had mentioned upstairs, and I told you that I'm gonna have to bring this up because this is a good conversation. What you mentioned upstairs was I asked you, I think something to the effect of what made you change, and you mentioned like your walk with God, your spiritual walk, etc. And I had somewhat of a counter, but not necessarily a contentious counter. It was just like, have you thought about this? So first, give some context to the listeners, when I asked you that, what was it in pertainment to?
I'm like, we went off on a few different ways, so...
What was like the overarching
Pregnancy
thing?
brain.
Okay, so let me try to fill it in here for what you can't remember. I can't even really remember that well, but I'm not even pregnant. What the fuck? So I think I said, you were saying like, you found God to some connotation. We'll just anchor it on that. You found God.
I feel like I've been saved again.
Saved again. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And I had rebutted that, well, you were always saved. You just weren't necessarily practicing. Right. And there's a lot of people that do that. And there's throughout seasons of their life, they're saved. Like the foundation of who they are is saved. Absolutely. But they might not be practicing, and they might fall into desires that maybe otherwise take them off course or what have you. So you were saying that I feel like I'm practicing more now. And this is the thing that I question with not just you, but everybody. And I even question it with myself. So I'm not, I don't have impunity with this either. I question, is it really God? And this is going to like fucking blow people's minds that are hearing me for the first time. Because if you know that, not for the first time, but if you know me, I'm religious, and I believe in God. I believe in the Trinity. I believe in God, etc. I'm saved as well. Got saved when I was 16. This is back when I was 16, since 16. So 21 years. 21 years. Fuck. That's crazy. Okay. I hate dating myself. Fuck it. YOLO. Anyways, so
you got this.
So I am that person. I am God oriented, etc. But in the personal development space, since starting the podcast and since not just the advent of the podcast, but what's dispensed in the podcast and what I do to have a better understanding of the message that I want to dispense with when I do solo sessions. Because when I do guests, and I just incorporated the guest, not even a year ago, I was doing solo sessions up until, I don't know, like I had lots of episodes, hundreds of episodes. So that's caused me to do some solo independent reflecting and sort of circumvent my situation the best I can based on the circumstances that I'm in. And that doesn't look like going to seek therapy. That doesn't look like going to counsel with my friends and telling them, hey bro, I'm blah, blah, blah. I'm, and being vulnerable with them or etc. No, it's been like me sitting down on that couch or my couch upstairs and just sitting with myself. And the more that I've done that, and also I will add talking to God in the interim of everything as well. But I would add that when I do these things, I'm questioning more, is it really levying everything on this entity called God, or is it just the fact that I've developed more focus towards the specific aim that I want to reach? Because we talked about this upstairs, but faith, we talk about having faith. You just when times are tough, you got to have more faith. And that's essentially you advocating for things that are of benevolence that are not yet here, but that are to come. I'm paraphrasing what faith is, but that's sort of, to some degree what it is. You not being able to physically see it yet, but believing that it's there when it's not yet there. Something to that effect. Or is it just you being disciplined and staying the focus towards that specific end goal or aim that you're in until you see it, turn into something that's prosperous for you, or you end up getting something, you end up getting to the end of that goal, like until it bears fruit. Which one is it? Because it's really nebulous to just, and rather short-sighted to just toss everything on God and say, well, I'm only here because God. Well, what about what God put in you to get you there? Because he gave us all these magnificent brains that we don't even fully understand the extent of in terms of their neural pathways and how we connect and orient ourselves through life with our brain, etc. Like, we understand a lot, but we don't understand it. It's like the ocean, and we understand 95% of what's out there. Or I'm sorry, 5 or 10% of what's out there, but 95% is unfucking charted. That's a lot. So I'm not saying it's tantamount to the brain, but that's sort of aligned. Like, the brain is so uncharted in so many spectrums. Why would we leave that on the table just because we can't define it, we can't understand it to the fullest extent? What degree of this is us? And what degree of it is God? And are we just rather tossing it to the entity because it's the society, the more politically correct thing to do when you're a religious person? Like, what is it?
It's a good question. And
it's hard to, because I'm not going to sit here and say, this is all me. Because I do believe that God has saved me from certain things that have happened in my life that could have otherwise knocked me out of the running completely. And I'm sure you have had similar experiences. But when you say have faith, isn't it like saying, just be more perseverant? Just be more disciplined towards a thing that you really can't get out of that you really cannot exonerate yourself from. Because if you did, you feel like a piece of your identity is gone. So which one is it? Or is look, God put this person in my path? Or is it your brain oriented yourself around that person because of what your focus is? And we understand the RAS, the reticular activating system, to do that, to orient itself around things that are familiar towards that goal that you place in your mind. So which one is it? Is it really God? Or is it just what God placed inside of you, which is that really complex brain that's capable of so much that we don't even comprehend, we can't comprehend or understand yet? Jeez. We talked about the RAS as an example of the reticular activating system. An example of this is when you buy a car that you haven't yet owned. Let's say it's a Toyota, a Camry, whatever. You buy that car. Now you start to notice that Camry everywhere. Well, was it just that people were copying you and buying that car after you bought it? Or was those things always around you, but you never understood it because your focus wasn't on those Camrys in the first place? But now, because you own it, your brain tries to connect the familiarity around it. The brain is going to connect the familiar things that are surrounding it. And so that's why you now can spot out those Camrys. Those Camrys in red were always there. But now they're detected by you because you have a red Camry. So that is kind of analogous to, or can be, to our pursuit, our aim, our focus, whatever you want to call it. Is it God placing these people, opportunities, etc. in our life? Or is it because we're steadfast with the fucking pursuit and the aim that our brain naturally draws connectivity towards said things that are analogous to our pursuit? And then we attract those things, and then we naturally now have those as opportunities or stepping stones towards our pursuit.
Could you say it was both?
I mean, I guess you can. You can say anything. You can say we live in a clown world and we're all clowns. I mean, you can say anything.
Well, because God gives us discernment, you know?
Does he give us discernment? Is that factual? Or do we adopt discernment based on data that we've experienced or collected from the past? I mean, is discernment a quality that we grow into, or comes with wisdom? Like we grow into and comes with wisdom, or is it something that we're born with?
Yeah.
I would say that people that are apprehensive based on certain experiences that they've deemed threatening would have better discernment in the future, because look, they've been burned so many times. Now they're cautious about being burned a seventh or eighth time because they've been burned 6 times prior. So now they have more discernment towards incoming experiences or incoming people, because they're trying to ascertain whether that's a threat or not. So they have better discernment, more careful discernment towards that said experience or person.
Yeah, there's a lot there. And when you bring up faith, I think of a few instances just for me recently that it's just so hard for me to not give credit to God. It's so hard for me to not just give him that glory. It's really hard. I'm it still points back at him. And that's just for me in my experience, obviously. But, yeah.
Multiple times I've encountered situations where I could have otherwise been severely hurt or burned, and it was just spontaneous. I had no way to counter it in the time that I had. Meaning I couldn't deviate from the threat. I didn't have enough time. And I automatically default to thanking God. Automatically. Because in that particular moment, I don't know what else it would have been.
Yeah.
So
that's exactly how
I hear you. I understand. I just constantly question. I guess I don't constantly. That's a lie. I don't constantly question. I just question it occasionally, because, and I likely will never find the answer, and maybe it's an answer that shouldn't be, or a question that shouldn't be answered rather. It's just something that exists, and I guess we'll know when we die, and we either end up meeting God or we don't. I mean, none of us really know what's up there.
And I don't really think I'm not saying I'm not up for debate. I'm not really one to debate. I love to just hear perspective, and I love to learn from others. But I think it all really goes back to that personal experience, for that one person. They only know what they walked through, what they went through. Yeah. So I feel like it's so hard to, there's a lot there. I mean, I love it. I love it. I love hearing you talk. I listen to you when I'm at the gym. So I'm I've heard some of this before. But even going back to faith, I had just a massive breakthrough myself just recently. My dad had went missing. He's been having a really hard time, and he went missing, and everyone's just been praying about it pretty much, and a group of men got together, 15 plus men, prayed. The next day he was found, and just the way it happened, the way it was laid out, it just, there's no other explanation for it. But in those moments, I remember feeling I need to go out and find him. I need to go out and do something, the insanity of it, because of course all his loved ones want to find him. That's the goal, to find him, get him the help he needs, love on him, and for me, it was a massive step in faith to stay back, to not do a lot of the things I wanted to. And a big part of that was being pregnant. I am very mindful of my body. I'm very mindful of a lot of my emotion. I don't want to carry that onto the baby. This pregnancy has been completely different, and I'm just so much more aware of myself in all different ways. But it was a big leap of faith to break down in the bathroom to my husband and tell him I'm just so sad. I'm so sad that my dad, we don't know where he is, and he's alone, and I can't even imagine what that feels like to be I see homeless on the street. My heart hurts for them, but to know your own father is out there, it just brought a whole nother level of sadness that I wanted to go find him and just bring him home and make him feel loved. And it just, that moment, I had to tell my husband, I'm just really sad. And I know there's nothing I can do except give it to God. Like, I know God's got him. I know he's going to be found. And my husband went to that prayer meeting, and he too was like, I need to be with my family. Like, we have stuff with our kids, like, but I'm going to go to that tonight. And so I was like, that's fine. Like, I want you to do whatever you feel is fitting. Because that night they had a whole search team out for him and everything. But for me, then that coming back to like, they found him the next day. And then I got to see my dad that same day and love on him and hug him and see him. It like deepened that faith for me and my personal relationship with like God. Like, okay. Like, and I'm not saying that's going to happen every time, but why wouldn't I? Like, why shouldn't I? And that's just for me and where I'm at in my walk. Yeah, I feel like my faith has been really stretched and tested. And that's one thing I've always struggled with, why I've just kind of felt like, I don't got to give it. I don't got to take that to God. I don't want to give this up. Very in myself. But it's just not fun. It doesn't feel good. It's just insanity. It's crazy.
What if things went the opposite direction and they didn't find him? And have you played that card? How what that would test your faith in an exorbitantly different way?
No, yeah. I mean, it had been 2 weeks of like turning it over to him day and night, being afraid, being scared day and night. There were times where I was like, I don't want to get that phone call. Like, I don't want to get that phone call. And I kept having to turn it over. My husband would pray. Family was praying. Like, and for me, again, it was just leaning into that. But like, thank God, and God forbid anything happened or happens, because we're talking like we don't know the future.
We don't.
I still have to lean in. Like and that goes with any loved one, really, when we sit here and talk, any loved one, myself, like I still have to like try my best to lean in. And I'm sure there'll be times when I don't want to. I'm sure there'll be times when I don't. But I want to remember those moments where, God has been faithful in like that particular situation with me. In my marriage, I turned to a friend and things just weren't going the best, to simply say. And she was like, I'm praying for your marriage. No matter what, I am rooting for your marriage. Like, she was just like that friend, like that person I needed to talk to in that moment. Like that very moment was very clear. I needed to have a phone conversation with her. And this was like an out of the moment conversation, pulled over at a park to talk to her, not like a planned one. Her parents ended up being the ones who are ministering, who have helped our marriage, like who we have literally been able to now create a new marriage culture for our family. And like, not just my family, like for for generations, because everything like I've been talking about has not been modeled to us. The way we want to walk and like our hope and what God has for us has not been modeled. And so we are like now going to be able to bring that to like the new generations, like down our family line, and be like, this is what it is. This is how it is. And hopefully, just like, you only know what you know, that hopefully that'll be what they know. And they won't know what it's like to feel like unsafe and abandoned and all those ugly things, Yeah,
you're instilling a new model.
Exactly. But again, I can't help but, as we talk about this, to just bring it back to God for me and And again, that's my personal walk and where I'm at. But
well, I mean,
yeah.
Either way, I mean, whether they're spiritual people listening to this or atheists listening to this, I mean, the fact is that you can respect that divulge in illustration of your life. Mm-hmm. You can respect that is where this person is at, and they're leading with their best foot forward, and they're actively changing. They made a decision to change. You've made a decision to change, and that's really what was essentially the catalyst behind your growth. Your desire to change and be different and be better and instill a new model for your kids. Because as you said yourself, it's not, well, you didn't say this exactly, but it's not really just about you. It's about your kids. I mean, I know what you were illustrating that though. It's it's about your kids too. And it's not just right now, the marriage of Danny and Vanessa. It's your marriage, what example you can lay out for your kids when they get married and what they're going to lay out for their kids, etc. And it goes on down the line. But you were the one to possibly break the dysfunction, in your family. I don't know your family tree, but I'm based on what you grew up in. I mean, you broke it with that. You could have kept it going, right? And you had the strength or the requisite strength prior to be able to do something like that. Whereas a lot of people just would have called it quits. A lot of people would have just been like, gone this far and I clearly haven't shaped up yet. It's looking pretty grim, my future. So let me just collect my belongings and, go elsewhere, start another life elsewhere. And multiple families do that. Like multiple families are broken as a result of that being the parents' decision. But that wasn't your decision, and you made a conscious decision to be different for you, not only you and Danny, but your kids. Yeah. And whatever that's anchored on, whether it's God, whether it's your own disciplines, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's here. It's a reality. And so that in of itself is a massive win. That's such a humble state to be in and grateful state to be in. And it only is going to perpetuate itself in terms of the example to other people, and other people are going to be able to benefit from your story. If you didn't come out the way you are, you'd kind of just been levied to a statistic of women or rather marriages that divorce and don't make it. And you just would have added to the dysfunctional equation, And
nothing changes until it was the whole, nothing changes until I change.
Right. Well, how did Danny help you in all of this? Because I know he was a big helper.
He'll know why I'm laughing.
He's a big helper.
Because he's been so phenomenal, and we've had this talk many times, and he has let me write out my course and whatever that looks like. And that, by saying that, is he has been not controlling, not like, he's just let me write out my course. He's let me fall and hit my face. He's let me do all of that, but has also loved me. He's a man of grace, like so much grace. Yeah. And for like in the overall picture, like he made the decision it'll be 8 years, I believe, to get sober. And that totally is what really shifted everything. When he made that decision to get sober, it shifted everything. It took me a lot slower to catch on. I had to go where I had to go first, but But for him, you know, he's set quite the example for many years and has continued to trudge through even when he was struggling. Like he still showed up, you know, he still showed up in all the ways, and he walks very, like certain words I could put to him are, you know, very humble, humility, like grace, strong. Like he really walks the walk. And when he's having a hard time, he's very quick to admit it. You know, he's very quick to admit when he's having a hard time or when he's at fault for something, even the little things, you know. But I would say that he is definitely like the backbone of our family and where it's going, and like just the whole direction has shifted because of him. But understanding now, like we both needed to get right here in our relationship with God so we could be better here. That's been our major thing. If that sums it up at all.
Yeah. A question for you, did that change your feelings towards him when he started to adopt that role of strength more so than he was once in prior? Did that kind of shift your, I don't want to say attraction, but did that shift your affinity for him?
Oh yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. And I've told him, like, I didn't think I could love someone more, you know, but I do. I love him. Like I was telling you earlier, like I can't wait to get home and see him, you know? Whereas before I was so concerned about myself. And so like, I love my husband, and I say that, and like, I like feel it now. It's just taken a long road to get to a place where like it's healthy, you know, the healthy aspect. Again, we can eat all the healthy foods, do all the training, but there's something about that deep inner part, all those demons, those skeletons, the past hurts, all that stuff that if you take it on with you, I don't know what to tell you, but it's not going to serve you.
How do you propose people get themselves right when they're trying to work out these demons in their lives?
Just keep seeking out help. I mean, for us, I mean, Danny's in we'll call it a 12-step program. We've found different ministries. We are not, how do I say this? Right now we're kind of going where the Spirit leads. That's how I put it. That's how I say it at home. As far as like churches, we don't believe it's like a certain building or a certain anything. We're just going where we feel pulled. And right now it's been wonderful, like to go that route for our family and where we're at in our season. For me, it's been surrounding myself with like the right woman, you know, just honestly, it's been being vulnerable. It's taken a lot of vulnerability. But when I look back at my previous relationships with like girlfriends, they weren't healthy, and it was no one's fault. It just, I wasn't a healthy person. I didn't know how to be a good friend. Whereas today, like, it's different, but that's been a lot of that inner work I talk about. So I would tell, I mean, people can reach out to me on my Instagram if someone were like, hey, like, can you share your story with me? Can you help me? Like, or if they need to just let out something, I'm happy to just listen, you know? I don't always have to be the one saying what someone needs to do. Sometimes someone just needs to talk about it and like release that, you know, to find some sort of like, to not be so bound to those like chains of feeling like you're just being suffocated to that stuff, whatever it is, whatever the sin, whatever that ugly thing that's hiding inside of you. It doesn't matter. Like, you're not any less of a human. And I say that because I've seen both ends of it for myself, for people I love. And at the end of the day, I feel like we're honestly just all doing our best with what we have. And the more tools we have, I feel like the better chances we have at giving ourselves like the opportunity to have that life that we can have. is how I'll
Yeah,
put
that's
it.
wonderfully said. That's wonderfully said. Do you feel like you're called to a higher purpose apart from just the juice business? That's what it seems like to me.
That's funny you say that, because we were just talking about, I listened to your podcast, the plan A and not having like a plan B. And I was telling Danny, I was like, I feel like we have all these sub A's, and like
You listen to that one?
yeah. And God has like the plan A for us. Like, we don't know what that's going to look like. And we have different things we're like, dreaming about, planning, working towards. We have a growing family. But we do both believe like God has the ultimate plan A. It's not going to fall in our lap, but we know that if we keep doing the work, my husband will say, I have to give credit to his words, the next right indicated thing. If we keep doing that next right indicated thing, the thing in front of us, then, it's going to present itself in time. Things have already kind of opened up that we were like, oh, seen that coming. Like, it's been a God thing. And we're just like, okay, like, we don't know what or how it looks, how things look, but we just know that there's something that he has that's bigger than what either one of us can like imagine. And it's not really in a sense of like, I know finances will come. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like purpose, like serving others, loving others. Yeah, really that's more of like what I'm talking about, not an actual like object or thing. And juice is amazing. Like, I love my juice business. I don't see myself like giving that up at the moment. But I do believe it has just been a part of the beginning.
I think that has a lot to do with your ministry. I think that juice business is sort of your ministry, and it's how God is sort of refining you or tooling you to bring you into the upper stages of your life. I mean, I don't think at the end of the day it's about juice. I think at the end of the day it's about your connection with people and the ability you have to otherwise persuade people to be better and to do better and to want more and to want better for themselves. And the reason why I say that is because that's how I feel about personal training. I don't believe personal training is the only vehicle. I believe it's just a vehicle, and it's sort of been there to illustrate and rather identify or uncover what hidden talents I did have when it comes to, if I have any, when it comes to people. And that's how he used me, and that was sort of the ministry. And I believe that ministry could live on, and I could add to it the more that I see fit, but it's not something it's not the end all. I'm not going to retire from being a personal trainer when I'm 55 or 60.
Yeah.
But I think he's using sort of like you're on a lily pad. A lily pad is juice business, and that's how he's using you, tooling you, and refining you to be better for the upper stages that he wants to bring you into. But you have to graduate respectively from this specific lily pad. The only way you do that is to endure all of the ripple effects that are otherwise underneath you, and be able to still stay above water on that lily pad.
Yeah,
that makes any sense.
No drowning here. I may not know how to swim, but
yeah, I mean, you can get knocked off the pad, but you better get the fuck back on it.
Exactly. I agree.
So what does that look like for you, do you think? What are those upper stages look like for you? I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to put it out there now. What does the ultimate upper stage for you look like? No one's listening. No one's watching us. It's just you and I talking. What does that upper stage look like? The thing that you suppress and probably have suppressed for years, you don't think you're equipped for, you don't think you're good enough for. What is that stage? What does that upper stage look like? Because we all have that stage in us, but we almost never bring it to the forefront because we do not think we're adequate. We do not think we're equipped. We do not think we have what it takes. But I know you have one. I know you have an upper stage. I know you have that thought. I know you have that. I know you otherwise have something that you suppress all the time because you don't think you're enough. So what does that look like?
Writing those books.
Writing books.
Helping other women, other families walk through things that we've been through.
Now, here's another question. Why do you think you're not good enough to write a book?
It's not that I don't think I'm good enough.
Okay,
It's
so
just-
why don't you think you're equipped yet to write a book?
That's a good question. The book, there's been podcasts. Those two things have been back there for like the last 3-4 years, but it's just been, again, I think it's been the pruning, just going through the pruning, you know.
Do you know how good you are on social media?
No.
Very good on social media. And the reason why I say that is because when you first started coming out and posting stories, you're so consistent and you were so, what's the word? Artistic with it. In the way that you would, you know, as much as Instagram allows you to be artistic with the different things that you can use in your story, but the way you did every story, the way you illustrated the story for your audience is very, very good, very artistic. And I mean, I follow a lot of people. I see a lot of stories day in and day out, and yours stood out to me the most. And it wasn't because I have a bias towards you, because I know you and I've been knowing you for years. And you're my friend. It wasn't that. It was genuinely different, good. So you're talking about doing a podcast. Do you know what a podcast is? A podcast is exactly what you do on your stories. Without any illustration.
I'm not laughing at you.
I know you're not.
Didn't think about that.
Well, it's so simple, it's stupid. That's probably why you're laughing.
Yeah.
It's everything except the doctoring of the story. And you don't even have to film it. You're doing exactly what you could be doing on a wider scale, just in short format. So the reason why I contend with this like I am is because I've had people before ask me about starting a podcast, and I don't understand why they just don't start. It's the dumbest, simplest thing you could do. And if you're doing one on a story, or if you're speaking on a story, well, that's the same thing, except for longer format. The only question is, how do I get started? What mic do I buy? What mixer, etc.? Do I film it? Do I not? Once you have that all dialed in, which that's not even hard, I could help you with that. Well, I mean, not me, my sound guy could help you with that. Once that's in rotation, then you carve out a day or two to do the podcast every week. And I would say at least 2 days a week to do a podcast. And it could be anything from 5 minutes to an hour or longer, whatever. The point is, you start this thing, because if you keep allowing this to be a dream or something that's so outstanding and takes on a level of identity that it shouldn't, or a level of precedence that it shouldn't, you're going to never do this thing, because it's going to keep growing and growing in intimidation to you, and you'll never end up. So if you didn't do it yesterday, what are the odds you're going to do it tomorrow, when this has been a 3-year long run? You need to just do it. It's not that hard. You do far more in your juice business, And you do a lot with your stories, more than what's involved with doing a podcast. Again, if the back end is taken care of, all of the back end work that people don't know goes into a podcast. Once you get all that dialed in and you have somebody that is well versed in this, do it. And I can lead you towards that. You now just have to facilitate. But a funny thing happens when you start immersing yourself in something that's foreign. You end up adapting to the foreign. And you end up becoming better as a byproduct. And possibly practicing skills you didn't think were even there. But unless you don't immerse yourself in the foreign, well, you don't know how you're going to respond. But for all you know, it's going to be a benevolence in the response. There's going to be a benevolence in the response to the people that are hearing you and to you. But how will you know if you just don't start?
Yeah.
I'll tell you this. If you start it next week, I'll give you your first microphone. I have it. I'll give it to you. There's no excuses now for you not to do it. You'll start on the first mic I did.
That would be an honor.
Okay, but I'm not looking for the honor. I'm looking for you to do this shit. Because it's quite ridiculous that you haven't yet already, given everything you've been through and everything you could extend to others on a much wider scale than just your Instagram.
Yeah. I agree with you. I know. My husband bought me a book like 4 Christmases ago on how to start a podcast. So
you don't need a book. You don't need a book.
I know. It's been, and then, we have ideas together of things we would do together. So it just needs to happen already. So I totally agree with you. And I take the correction with love. So I know you mean well. And we need people to call us out in our life. We really do. Like, these are the connections I love because we need the call out. It's important.
So all that's great that you just said.
So
it's
thanks,
great.
friend.
So great.
I will start.
Okay, that's what I want to hear.
I'm going to be home with my baby so much that I have no excuse.
That's one thing is in this pregnancy, you might want to like tell your audience after you have, or right before you have the kid, like, I'm going to take a leave of absence for a little bit.
No, of course. Yeah. But no, I'm actually home a lot more now because Thomas started, like, we're doing partial like charter school, homeschool. So that's a whole new thing I'm diving into. So I'm only really at the restaurant like 1 to 2 days now. That just started recently. So
at the restaurant 1 to 2 days, are those days set in stone every week?
Every Saturday, and then Sundays, I'll probably be taking on Sundays too.
Okay.
So
Monday through Friday, what does that look like for you time wise?
Doing kid stuff.
So I know you train early in the morning, but then you do kid stuff later on in the day.
I take my daughter, and then Thomas will be on his campus for school 2 days a week in September. So I'll have 2 full days, or not full days, but I'll have 2 openings, and then through the week, it's just pick up drop offs to everything right now. I'm like a part-time taxi driver. So
right. When does that simmer down in the day for you? What time? 6, 5? When does it simmer down?
Like 2 if I'm lucky, depending on sports.
2 p.m.?
Yeah. It
2
depends
p.m.
on sports, and then it picks back up. It's like an ebb and flow all day long.
Okay. So you have a grace period between 2 and what, 5?
Like
2 and
2
6?
and 4.
2 and 4.
Yeah.
And then when's your next grace period? Like after you put the kids down, around 8?
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay. What I'm getting at is I'm needing you to carve out a time to do the podcast. So that's why I'm asking these questions, because this is important that you do this, because it's not just the advent of you doing the podcast. This is in terms based on who it can help, because you're doing this for more than just you. Mm-hmm. So I'm asking these questions to center around a time that you could and you will do the podcast.
Yeah.
Now, if later at night works better for you, that's why I say when the kids go down, or perhaps when you're in the muck and mire of everything and you're ignited between 2 and 4. Maybe that's a better time.
Right after the gym. That's when I'm really like, when I'm after the gym, I'm like, and my daughter will be, once I drop her off at the bus, you know, I mean, I'll have my son certain times, but it's all new as we're starting school. But I know once I have things down, it's going to be a piece of cake. And just like the gym, it's a muscle, you know, it's like once I'm in a routine, I like that routine.
Sure.
Like my time has shifted with my workouts and it bothers me.
Right.
I used to get up at 4:30. Now it's like 5:30. And then I'm like, I really miss that time. But I got to rest up. So.
Yeah. And this is only, you know, we're talking 2 days a week.
Yeah.
That's a doable thing for you, right?
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
We're going to talk more about this off mic. You're not getting off the leash with this.
Oh, I know that.
Well, I know you have a family to go back to, so I shouldn't keep you that much longer. But
I am getting hungry, so.
Yes, me too. Well, tell people where they can find you.
Whole.ness health. That's at its Instagram. You could just reach out to me there and send me a DM, and yeah, I'll get back to you.
Facebook, Twitter, nothing like that?
No, I kind of tried to eliminate as much as I can.
Yeah, amen.
Yeah.
That's good. I swear if it wasn't for this podcast, I would not have an Instagram.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care about Instagram. I fucking hate it, actually. If it was not for this podcast, I would not have it.
There's a lot I like to learn from there, but other than that.
I learn more from TikTok. And I don't even want to be on TikTok because that shit's addicting.
Oh my gosh.
But I learn more from that app than I ever have on Instagram.
Wow.
I don't know why. Maybe it's because when I go on, I only look at it. The algorithm is very genius with TikTok. It's also very scary what they can tap into in terms of your other, like your devices and your data, TikTok's a scary thing, okay?
It's pretty scary.
I don't want to get into that.
Media.
Yeah, I don't want to get into the scares of TikTok. You can research it if you like, but especially with their new terms of agreements that you sign to, it's very scary how much how much they are able to tap into in terms of your own personal data, etc.
Yeah.
Did you know that TikTok if you have TikTok downloaded on your phone and you're on a computer that's next to your phone, it can access the data that's on your computer, even if you don't have TikTok downloaded on your computer. So it's on my phone right now. If I had anything on my computer, which this is all podcast stuff on my computer,
it would pick it up.
It could pick it up. It could access it if it wanted to. That's scary. But I don't want to get into that. Anyways, but what I'm saying is TikTok in and of itself, I guess what I view, it's only sort of developmental derived, you know, and that's typically all it will give me, and or funny clips, like funny stupid shit, you know. I love that. It's so funny. There's some of that shit on there. Some of those people on there are talented.
Yeah.
Some of the people are talented and some of the people are not.
I looked up Cody Balboa. Mm-hmm. I only know him through like a mutual friend, relative, but then when you interviewed him, I went and looked up some of his stuff. I was laughing. I was
so
like,
funny. He's hilarious.
But I'm never I don't really try to spend any time other than what I do for my stuff, and then I try to not be, get in the habit of scrolling. But if I find some good information or like education stuff, I can't help but like kind of dive into that. My husband's the one who's really good at he has a timer. I think he actually deleted all his social media. I think he had Facebook for like Marketplace, but other than that, he's like not
Very
on
smart.
right now.
Very smart man. Yeah, very smart. TikTok will suck me in if I'm not careful.
Oh my God.
I have to like put a cap on it. I have to.
A timer.
But it's one of those things where I literally tap into when I'm bored. Instead of watching TV, I'll watch that. And yeah, it's not good though. Anyways, it's a whole nother topic. So anyways, okay. So social media, wholeness, health, DM you. If they have any questions or they want to get in touch with you.
Yeah, find me at Kennedy Club
Fitness.
We could go on a hike. I need some girlfriends to go on a hike right now because I need some hikes in my life. But
there you go. Reach out, please. Yeah. Wholeness, health. Okay. Well, until next time, we'll do this thing in another few months or so. Be ready.
Uh-oh.
All right. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.
It's always an honor to have you.
Oh, it's
an honor. It is. It truly is. I really, really love you.
I appreciate you, Justin.
Done.